The night before she left, Lily sat quietly in her small apartment, surrounded by half-filled boxes and fading memories. The walls were bare now, stripped of photographs and laughter, echoing only the sound of her own breathing. The decision to leave hadn't come easily, but it had come slowly, like the way autumn turns to winter. After years of trying to make a life in the same town that had once been full of dreams, she was finally done. Done waiting for things to change, done hoping people would stay, done pretending she belonged. Her suitcase sat by the door, ready for the morning bus that would take her far away from the place that once felt like home. She looked out the window, the town lights glowing faintly under the mist. Every street carried a memory: the cafe where she and Daniel had their first date, the bookstore where she worked part-time, the park bench where they used to talk for hours. Daniel. Even now, his name lingered in her thoughts like a song she couldn't stop hearing. They had loved each other once, deeply, purely, until life pulled them apart. He had chosen a different path, one that didn't include her, and she had never quite recovered. It wasn't anger she carried anymore, just a quiet ache that had settled into her bones. When dawn arrived, the sky was pale and heavy with clouds. Lily zipped up her coat, grabbed her bag, and took one last look around her apartment. There was no turning back now. The sound of her own footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as she walked out the door and down to the street. The bus stop wasn't far, just a few blocks away, but every step felt heavier than the last. The town was still waking up. A few cars passed, a bakery opened its doors, and a paperboy cycled past her, humming to himself. Life went on, as it always did. She sat on the bench, placing her suitcase beside her, and watched the morning fog roll across the road. She told herself she felt relief, but deep down, there was only numbness. The bus would arrive soon, and with it, the promise of a clean slate. As the minutes ticked by, Lily's thoughts drifted. She wondered what Daniel was doing now, if he was happy, if he'd moved on, if he ever thought of her at all. She told herself it didn't matter. That chapter was closed, but somewhere in her heart, she still carried the warmth of his voice, the way he used to say her name like it meant something. The sound of an approaching engine broke her thoughts. The bus was coming. She stood up, brushing off her coat, ready to leave everything behind once and for all. Just as she reached for her suitcase, she heard a small voice behind her, soft, hesitant, and full of innocence. "Please, stay for my dad." Lily froze. The world seemed to still around her. Slowly, she turned, and saw a little boy standing there, looking up at her with familiar eyes that made her heart stop. Lily stared at the boy, her hand still gripping the handle of her suitcase. His eyes were wide and full of something she hadn't seen in a long time, a mix of innocence and quiet pleading. He couldn't have been more than 6 years old, dressed in a little blue jacket and worn sneakers, his hair messy as if he'd run to get there. "What did you say?" she asked softly, unsure if she'd heard him right. The boy took a hesitant step forward. "Please don't go," he said again, his voice trembling slightly. "Please stay for my dad." Lily blinked, her mind struggling to catch up with the moment. She glanced around, half expecting to see someone nearby, but the street was empty. The early morning fog hung low, wrapping the scene in a surreal quietness. She crouched down to his level, her heart pounding. "Sweetheart, where's your dad?" He pointed down the road. "He's coming. I ran ahead because I didn't want you to leave before he got here." Her confusion deepened. "You know me." The boy nodded, a shy smile appearing on his face. "Kinda. My dad talks about you sometimes. He says your name when he looks at the sky." Her breath caught. That one sentence made her chest tighten in a way she hadn't felt in years. "What's your dad's name?" she asked, though part of her already knew what the answer would be. "Daniel," the boy said simply. For a second, the world tilted. The name fell from his lips like a key unlocking every memory she had tried so hard to bury. Her pulse raced as her mind spun. Daniel had a son. And that son was standing right in front of her. She felt her knees weaken and sat back on the bench, her suitcase forgotten. "You're Daniel's son," she whispered, more to herself than to him. He nodded proudly. "Yeah, my name's Noah." Lily tried to smile, but emotion trembled in her voice. "You look like him." Noah's grin widened, showing a missing tooth. "That's what Grandma says too." He looked up at her again, his expression turning serious. He's sad, you know. My dad. He doesn't say it, but I can tell. He sits on the porch sometimes and looks at the road. I asked him why, and he said he's waiting for something he lost. Lily's throat tightened painfully. She wanted to ask more, but the lump in her chest made it hard to speak. Before she could say another word, she saw a figure in the distance, tall, familiar, moving quickly down the sidewalk toward them. Even after all these years, she recognized the way he walked, the way his shoulders carried both strength and weariness. Daniel. Her breath caught as he came closer, slowing when he saw her sitting there beside his son. His eyes widened, disbelief washing over his face. He looked older, more rugged, but those same brown eyes, the ones she used to know so well, still carried that quiet warmth. Lily, he said, almost whispering her name. She stood slowly, heart pounding, unable to find her voice. Noah ran to him, tugging at his hand. Dad, I told you I'd stop her. She was going to leave, but I made her stay. Daniel's gaze never left Lily's. For a long, silent moment, the years between them disappeared. The only thing that mattered was that somehow, against all odds, fate had brought them back together, through the voice of a little boy who didn't even realize he'd just changed two lives forever. Daniel stood there frozen, his hand resting on Noah's small shoulder, his gaze locked on Lily as if she were a vision he'd dreamed of too many times to trust was real. The cold morning air seemed to fade, replaced by the heavy warmth of memories pressing between them. Lily's breath came shallow. She didn't know what to say, what to do. The world had moved on for both of them, yet in that single, quiet moment, it felt as if time had turned back to the day everything fell apart. You look the same, Daniel said softly, a hint of awe in his voice. I thought I'd never see you again. Lily forced a small, trembling smile. You almost didn't. I was leaving for good. Daniel's jaw tightened, and he took a slow step forward. Why? She exhaled shakily. Because there was nothing left to stay for. Everything here reminded me of what I lost. Of you. He looked down, guilt flickering in his eyes. I made mistakes, Lily. I thought I was doing the right thing back then. Letting you go so you could have a better life, one not tied to all the chaos I was in. But I was wrong. I lost the only person who ever truly saw me. Her heart twisted at his words. Years of unanswered questions and buried pain rushed to the surface. You could have told me that, she whispered. Instead, you just disappeared. Daniel swallowed hard. When my wife passed, I didn't have the strength to reach out. Then Noah came along, and I had to learn how to keep going. But even then, you were always there, somewhere in the back of my mind. Every time he smiled, every time he said something that reminded me of you, I'd think about what might have been. Lily looked down at Noah, who stood between them, clutching his father's hand, eyes darting from one adult to the other with innocent curiosity. He's a beautiful boy, she said quietly. Daniel nodded, his voice rough. He saved me. He gave me a reason to live again. For a moment, silence filled the space between them, not awkward, but full of things that didn't need to be spoken. Lily's suitcase still sat by the bench, half covered in mist. She looked at it, then back at Daniel, her heart caught in the space between running and staying. Maybe it's time to stop leaving, Daniel said gently, his voice almost a plea. At least, not without saying goodbye. Lily hesitated. Her whole life, she had built walls around the ache of what they once had. But standing there, with the little boy who carried both his father's eyes and her unspoken dreams, she felt those walls begin to crumble. Noah looked up at her suddenly, tugging her coat. Will you come have breakfast with us? Dad makes pancakes. Not the best ones, he added, grinning, but he tries. Lily laughed softly, the sound breaking through the cold air like sunlight. She glanced at Daniel, who smiled, a real, honest smile, one she hadn't seen in years. Maybe life had taken them in different directions for a reason. Maybe the pain, the distance, the loss, all of it had led to this moment. Lily took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, she said, I'll stay for breakfast. Daniel's shoulders relaxed, his eyes glistening with emotion. Noah cheered and grabbed her hand, tugging her toward their truck. As they walked together, Lily felt something shift inside her. The past couldn't be changed, but maybe, just maybe, the future could begin again. Not in the place she was running from, but in the people she had just rediscovered.